Did you know a narcissist is rarely gone forever? Even when they disappear, they are often plotting their next move, and sometimes you're the target. If you start noticing these 8 subtle behaviors, it's not just coincidence. They're planning their reach out. And yes, it's exactly what you're afraid of. If any of these signs feel familiar, pause and ask yourself, are you ready for them to come back, or are you protecting yourself? Awareness is the first step to staying in control. Even if they haven't spoken to you for months, a narcissist can't resist checking in, and social media is their perfect tool. One day it's completely silent, and the next you notice subtle, almost imperceptible shifts. They're liking your posts, watching your stories, or commenting in ways that seem casual but are calculated. It's not about your content, it's about you. They are gathering information, quietly observing your life, your mood, and even your routines without ever having to reach out directly. This is their reconnaissance. Unlike normal curiosity, this behavior is strategic. They're assessing whether you are emotionally available, vulnerable, or reacting in ways they can exploit if they decide to contact you. Even small interactions, like a heart reaction to a photo or a seemingly innocuous comment, are part of a larger pattern. Each digital touch point is a way to measure how much influence they could regain over you. And here's the critical part. They're not doing this for social engagement or friendship. It's about control. They want to know what you're feeling, what you're celebrating, and where you might still have lingering emotional attachment. If you respond, even with a like, a reply, or a comment, that feedback loop tells them exactly how to calibrate their next step. Your engagement becomes a map of your emotions, your defenses, and your weaknesses. Narcissists are highly sensitive to these signals. They can tell whether you're moving on, whether you're happy, or whether there's even a hint of doubt that they could exploit. Social media allows them to do this from a distance, so they can orchestrate a reach out without risking rejection. Understanding this subtle behavior is essential because it's the first ripple in a wave of strategies that can escalate into direct contact. Awareness gives you the power to see it for what it is, to prevent them from using your reactions to manipulate or lure you back into a dynamic that once caused harm. Even when a narcissist isn't reaching out to you directly, they often find ways to stay connected through the people around you. They might ask mutual friends, family members, or colleagues seemingly casual questions about your life. How are they doing? Or have you seen them lately? On the surface, it might feel innocent or just friendly curiosity, but for a narcissist, this is reconnaissance. They are gathering intel without exposing themselves to potential rejection or confrontation, using others as an emotional extension of themselves. This behavior is highly strategic. By asking indirect questions, they can gauge your emotional state, your current relationships, and even your routines, all without leaving a trace. They're testing boundaries from a distance, and each piece of information they gather helps them plan how, when, or if they might reach out. Often, they will subtly plant ideas in the minds of mutual contacts, framing themselves as thoughtful, concerned, or nostalgic. This serves 2 purposes. First, it normalizes the idea of them being back in your life, and second, it measures the reactions of those around you, which they interpret as clues to your emotional vulnerability. They are highly attuned to nuances. If friends respond with enthusiasm, curiosity, or sympathy, they see that as a sign that you might be receptive. If the feedback is neutral or protective, they adjust their strategy accordingly. Even minor details, like remembering a recent event in your life or commenting on a change in your habits, are recorded mentally. giving them an edge when and if they make direct contact. This indirect approach allows them to orchestrate their reach out with precision, minimizing the risk of rejection while maximizing the potential to re-enter your life. Recognizing this pattern is crucial because it highlights that the narcissist's absence is never complete. They are observing, calculating, and waiting for the perfect opening. Awareness of this behavior is your first defense, allowing you to maintain boundaries not just with them, but with the channels they use to probe you. A narcissist rarely leaves things to chance, and one of their most subtle strategies is orchestrating so-called accidental encounters. You might notice them showing up in places they know you frequent. Your favorite cafe, the park where you walk your dog, or even events you've mentioned in passing. On the surface, it seems coincidental, but narcissists are highly calculated. They watch, they plan, and they track patterns in your life to create these moments, carefully timing their appearance to observe your reaction. The purpose is not simply to see you, it's a test, a way to gauge whether you are emotionally accessible or whether your presence still triggers curiosity, desire, or even frustration. These encounters are designed to provoke emotion, and that emotional response is exactly the feedback they are looking for. If you show surprise, irritation, or excitement, they take note. It confirms that you're still affected by them, even in subtle ways. For a narcissist, emotional responses are data points. They measure how much influence they still have and whether they might be able to re-enter your life without resistance. Sometimes these appearances are paired with small gestures, like a casual smile, a nod, or a brief greeting, all carefully calculated to appear natural while still eliciting reaction. The brilliance of this strategy lies in its ambiguity. It can feel like chance, but it's entirely controlled. By orchestrating these coincidences, narcissists can gradually reinsert themselves into your world without ever having to admit intention or risk direct rejection. This behavior can leave you feeling disoriented or questioning your own perceptions, which is exactly what they want. They create uncertainty, and uncertainty softens boundaries. Recognizing that these encounters are rarely accidental gives you the clarity to respond intentionally rather than react emotionally. Awareness allows you to maintain your boundaries, understanding that their presence is often a prelude to deeper manipulation rather than an innocent coincidence. Once you identify this pattern, you regain control over your environment and your responses, limiting their ability to manipulate circumstances to their advantage. Nostalgia is a powerful tool in the narcissist's arsenal, and when they bring up shared memories, it's rarely innocent. You might notice them mentioning a funny story from the past, a trip you took together, or a moment where you felt close. On the surface, it can feel warm, even comforting, but for a narcissist, it's strategic. Nostalgia evokes emotion, and emotion lowers defenses. By reminding you of positive moments, they're subtly pulling at the threads of attachment you may still have. The intent is to make you feel sentimental, vulnerable, and often unconsciously more open to engagement. They are not necessarily interested in reliving the past for the sake of memory. They are testing the emotional waters, seeing whether those old connections still hold sway over you. Every reaction you have is data for them. If you respond positively, laugh, reminisce, or even just smile, it signals that there's still a pathway back into your emotional life. Narcissists are highly attuned to these cues. They don't just notice, they catalog them, remembering what makes you tick, what makes you feel warmth or longing, and what might make you question whether you've truly moved on. The more they can associate themselves with good feelings or past joy, the easier it becomes for them to soften your boundaries when they eventually reach out. Sometimes they will even exaggerate or romanticize these shared memories, painting the past in a way that favors them and makes it seem almost magical while downplaying any pain or conflict that may have existed. This selective storytelling is intentional. It makes the emotional pull stronger and the prospect of reconnecting more tempting. Recognizing when a narcissist is triggering nostalgia is crucial because it allows you to pause, reflect, and see the strategy for what it is. The memories themselves are harmless, but the motive behind bringing them up is manipulative. Awareness gives you the choice to feel the nostalgia without letting it influence your decisions or your boundaries, keeping you grounded in the present rather than being pulled back into a past that the narcissist wants to weaponize. One of the most insidious ways a narcissist signals that they might be planning a reach out is by testing your emotional boundaries. This often starts subtly. A text that seems harmless but is designed to provoke a reaction. A question that feels slightly personal, or a comment that nudges at your insecurities. They are essentially measuring how much access they still have to your emotions, and every response you give is carefully noted. For a narcissist, emotions are like a roadmap. They reveal exactly where your vulnerabilities lie and how easily they can influence your state of mind. If you respond with warmth, curiosity, or even irritation, it tells them you still care, that you are still reactive, that a part of you is still accessible to them. This testing is rarely accidental. It is a deliberate probe designed to see how far they can go without triggering rejection. Sometimes these tests are disguised as humor or casual observation, but the intention is always to gauge emotional engagement. A seemingly trivial question, like asking how you are doing after a long silence, can be a way to measure whether you're lonely, happy, or emotionally available. Ambiguity is key. Narcissists often craft these tests so that no direct confrontation occurs. They can interpret your reaction in multiple ways, giving them a wealth of information while remaining innocent themselves. Over time, these small tests form a pattern, mapping out your current emotional landscape. If the narcissist senses that your defenses are still soft or that you're likely to respond emotionally, it increases the likelihood that they will attempt a more direct reach out. Recognizing these subtle tests is critical because they often go unnoticed, dismissed as minor curiosity or coincidence. Awareness allows you to step back and observe without engaging, breaking the feedback loop that gives the narcissist the information they crave. By maintaining clear emotional boundaries and responding minimally or not at all, you reduce their ability to gauge your availability, leaving them without the emotional data they need to plan their next move. Understanding this pattern is empowering. It shifts control back to you, ensuring that any potential reach out is met on your terms rather than theirs. One of the most subtle and manipulative ways a narcissist signals that they might be planning a reach out is through excessive compliments or flattery. Unlike genuine praise, which is spontaneous and grounded, narcissistic flattery is strategic, often over the top and carefully timed. They know exactly what to say to make you feel special, validated, or seen, sometimes in ways you didn't even realize you craved. This isn't about admiration. It's about testing whether they can still influence your emotions and perception of them. When a narcissist suddenly begins showering you with praise, whether for your appearance, achievements, or even personality traits, it's rarely coincidental. Every compliment is a probe designed to make you lower your guard, question your boundaries, and feel an emotional pull toward them again. Flattery functions like a mirror. It reflects back the parts of yourself that you want to be recognized, and when delivered by someone who once held power over your emotions, it can feel intoxicating. They are essentially measuring your receptiveness, gauging whether you are still susceptible to their influence. Sometimes this flattery comes after a period of silence or distance, which amplifies its effect. It feels sudden, unexpected, and emotionally charged. The narcissist watches for your reaction, whether it's pleasure, curiosity, or even discomfort, because each response is data. It tells them how effective their influence still is and whether they might have an opening for a more direct approach. Recognizing this behavior is crucial because the flattery can feel flattering, disarming, and almost sincere, but underneath, it is a calculated strategy designed to manipulate your feelings. Awareness allows you to enjoy the compliment without giving it power over your decisions or emotional state. By observing the pattern instead of reacting impulsively, you can maintain control over your boundaries, ensuring that the narcissist's attempts at influence remain just that, attempts, not invitations. Understanding the psychological purpose behind this flattery gives you clarity, helping you see beyond the charm to the strategy and protecting yourself from being drawn back into a dynamic that is ultimately about control, not genuine connection. A narcissist's apologies are rarely what they seem. When they start offering subtle apologies, it can feel like a breakthrough, a sign of reflection or remorse. But in reality, these apologies are carefully calculated strategies, often meant to test the waters for a potential reach out. Phrases like, "I'm sorry you felt that way," or "I regret that it upset you," may sound conciliatory, but notice what's missing: any real admission of wrongdoing, responsibility, or insight into the harm they caused. This kind of apology is not about mending the relationship. It's about measuring your emotional reaction and softening your defenses. They are observing whether you accept it, forgive them, or show vulnerability, because each response becomes a data point for future manipulation. Subtle apologies can also serve to normalize their presence again, gently reminding you that they exist, that they're capable of care, and that the past conflict may not be as rigid or unresolvable as it once felt. The apology creates a small opening, a psychological foothold without committing to any genuine accountability, which is key. Narcissists are experts at framing these interactions so that they appear reasonable and harmless, but underneath they are tests. Your response reveals boundaries, emotional availability, and whether you are still affected by their influence. If you engage, even minimally, it signals that they still have leverage. If you remain neutral or maintain distance, it tells them they must recalibrate, perhaps waiting for a better opportunity. Recognizing subtle, non-accountable apologies is crucial because they can feel validating and disarming. They often stir hope, nostalgia, or curiosity, which the narcissist relies on to gauge your readiness to respond or reconnect. Understanding this pattern gives you clarity. The apology is not a bridge to genuine resolution, but a probe into your emotional landscape. By observing without engaging emotionally, you prevent them from gathering the feedback they need to plan their next move. Awareness of this behavior protects your boundaries, allowing you to see the difference between sincere accountability and strategic maneuvering designed to reopen doors they should never walk through again. One of the most telling and dangerous signals that a narcissist may be planning a reach out is when they begin referencing your vulnerabilities. They don't just bring up past hurts casually. They target moments when you felt weak, insecure, or emotionally exposed. These references can be subtle, something as small as reminding you of a time you doubted yourself, struggled with a decision, or were hurt by their behavior, but the intent is calculated. Narcissists are highly attuned to emotional patterns, and by bringing up your vulnerabilities, they are testing whether those old wounds are still tender, whether you are still reactive, and whether there's an opening for influence. This behavior is not accidental. It's an exploration of your emotional terrain, a way of mapping where they can re-enter your life with minimal resistance. The goal is to create an emotional connection that bypasses your rational defenses, even if it appears as concern, empathy, or curiosity. Their true purpose is to gather information. They want to know if you are still affected, if you still crave their validation, or if the pain they once caused still resonates. By referencing your weaknesses, they are also subtly reminding you of your past dependency on them, evoking feelings of guilt, doubt, or longing, which can make you more susceptible to engagement. This tactic is particularly manipulative because it feels intimate, almost caring, but it's designed to reopen doors they should not be allowed to walk through. Awareness is critical here, because if you respond emotionally, even minimally, you provide them with confirmation that these old cracks in your armor are still exploitable. Recognizing this pattern allows you to respond with detachment and maintain firm boundaries, understanding that the mention of vulnerabilities is not an invitation for reconciliation, but a strategy to measure control and influence. Once you see the behavior clearly, it becomes easier to protect yourself emotionally, refusing to give them the leverage they seek, and ensuring that any potential reach out is met on your terms rather than falling into their carefully orchestrated manipulations.